Durbin come?
I know it is. I'll go.
No, he'll get here.
He'll come.
Okay, well, I'm joined by my leadership team, our leadership team, and Dick Durbin and Mark Warner, also part of it, here's Dick Durbin, and Mark Warner will be here shortly. First, I want to thank all of my colleagues for the support they have shown me, the confidence they have shown me, but we're really a team. We have worked together as a team for the last 2 years and will continue to do that. I love every member of my caucus. I truly do. They're all great people, different views, different backgrounds, but everyone works hard to see other people's points of view, and that's why we have been able to come together, because of the unity. The unity in our caucus has been our strength, and it will continue stronger than ever in the 116th Congress. When we stood here 2 years ago, we faced a daunting electoral map, the worst in decades. And we faced difficult questions about how best to serve the people with such an unconventional president in the White House. 2 years later, let's take stock. Thanks to the unity of our caucus, we beat back Republican efforts to repeal health care. 30 million people have health care because of this caucus. And the Republican assault on the health care system continues. They continue to pursue their destructive lawsuit to eliminate protections for pre-existing conditions. Costs are made higher and higher. Coverage gets diminished every day because of Republican sabotage. Prescription drugs are out of reach for too many, and the GOP knives are still out for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Republicans jammed through a biased tax bill that rewarded the wealthy and the powerful special interests. But we Democrats were unified in opposition. We made it clear day after day after day that the Republicans were the party that stands for the rich and for the wealthy special interests. And we were the party on the side of middle-class Americans and those struggling to get there. Republicans predicted the tax bill would save their party, lead to enormous victories in the midterms. Turns out they were afraid to even talk about it. In almost all of their campaigns, they didn't mention it. That's because it was so unpopular. And I believe there's a sea change. For 30 years, the powerful, wealthy few who have dictated tax policy on the Republican side, cut the taxes of the rich, and that's a great thing for America, that's over. I think our message, our focus, has put a knife through the heart of that argument. You won't see the Republicans doing that very much anymore. What they did do is explode the deficit. As a result, people saw it as selfish, narrowly focused, dangerous, and irresponsible. And so, with the Senate map wildly tilted in Republicans' favor, we're at worst only one seat worse off than we were when we stood here 2 years ago. And if Bill Nelson wins, which I believe he has a very good chance of doing, we'll be even. When all the votes are counted in Florida, we could be just where we started at the beginning of the 115th Congress, with 48 members, even facing the worst map that we've ever had. We were defending 10 seats that Donald Trump won, much to the surprise of the prognosticators who thought we'd lose a whole bunch of seats. We didn't. But that's the past. Where do Senate Democrats go from here? We're going to be relentlessly focused on the issues that matter to the people. First and foremost, lower health care costs, provide better, stronger coverage. From prescription drugs to premiums, we Democrats are going to continue to press our Republican colleagues for better, more comprehensive health care rather than send costs skyward and help the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry. We Democrats believe in a real infrastructure bill with real direct and robust federal investments that will rebuild our crumbling roads and bridges, expand high-speed internet access in rural areas, and put millions, 10 million Americans to work in good-paying jobs, including fields like clean energy along the way. And we need to clean up Washington in a real way. Rather than paying lip service to the idea of draining the swamp, which is all Republicans have done. They paid lip service and made it worse, led by President Trump making it worse. We are going to fight hard to clean this swamp. The Trump administration is the most ethically challenged in history. From the president to his cabinet, and congressional Republicans have backed up that swamp all the way. We're going to fight for real reforms to loosen the grip of special interests in Washington and to let everybody vote. Everybody. Not stand in the way of people voting, which is a despicable, despicable thing for people to do. It's against the wellspring of our democracy. We hope our colleagues in the House will have success in passing bills like this. We will be relentless here in the Senate in pressuring Senator McConnell and Republicans in the Senate to put them on the floor or pay the consequences. The American people voted for Democrats last week on the strength of our ideas. Senate Democrats are committed to fighting to make those ideas a reality in this upcoming Congress.
Mr. Schumer, with respect to Florida, sir?
Yes.
I know yesterday you appeared with Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Can you share with us some of the conversations maybe you've had with him? What are his thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, Bill Nelson is strong as could be. He believes, I believe, he's won a majority of the votes. And as long as they're counted, he will continue being senator from Florida. President Trump and Governor Scott have just lied. They've said there's fraud when their own Republican officials in Florida have said there's no fraud. They're trying to shut down the election because they're afraid of the consequences if they don't. In other words, a Nelson victory. That's what Bill believes. That's what I believe.
Do you feel as if those deadlines should be moved out and they should?
Absolutely. Every vote should be counted. Those deadlines, you have to remember, were passed after the presidential election of 2000 because of the need to report to the Electoral College. We in the Senate don't have an Electoral College, and every vote ought to count. It is unconstitutional to say every vote should count in rural counties because they can count quickly, but every vote shouldn't count in the more urban and populated counties because it takes them longer to count the vote. Yes?
Do you think we could see a partial government shutdown in December, and what might be the big hang-ups during this?
The Republicans are in charge. And if the government shuts down, it's on their back. Now, we want a couple of things. We want to make sure that the acting Attorney General does not interfere with the Mueller investigation, and we believe our Republican colleagues will join us. You'll see on the floor later today a bipartisan unanimous consent statement, unanimous consent request to prevent the acting Attorney General, Whitaker, from interfering. And we believe if President Trump stays out of the appropriations process, we can have a good bipartisan agreement and the government can move smoothly forward. Democrats and Republicans have agreed on 70% of the budget in a way where each side gave, but the government was funded, and many of our priorities, veterans, education, infrastructure, opioid, were funded in a robust way. And as long as Trump doesn't interfere, we can move the government forward.
Are Democrats willing to give more than $1.6 billion for the border wall that the president wants?
The Democrats and Republicans came to the $1.6 billion agreement. It is tough security. It is sensors. It is drones. It is roads. It is help at the border in a far more effective way than the wall. And we believe Democrats and Republicans should stick with their agreement and not let President Trump interfere. Every time he interferes, it gets bollocksed up. Yes.
Leader Schumer, we've now entered the time period where a number of members of your caucus, including some of the folks standing around you right now, are considering whether they want to run for president. How does that affect the dynamics in your caucus and your leadership strategy?
The bottom line is that our caucus is unified. People have re-elections coming up. People may want to run for higher office. It has never stood in the way of our unity. Every time we have needed unity, every one of the people in this caucus, whether they're running for re-election, running for a higher office, have stood with us, and that will continue, I am confident. Thank you, everybody. We got to go this way.